This is How to Stream by Swolecat. So who this is for is streamers, VTubers, all that other stuff, learning how to do it. So yeah, this is mostly going to be focused on OBS and plugins and stuff. And I'm going to be focused on general advice, but I'm going to go on VTuber tangents. I'm going to go on a bunch of tangents. And I'm also going to be assuming you're going to go to Twitch. There is going to be some parts of this guide for like multi-streaming, but you can generally use a lot of the stuff for YouTube or Kick or whatever. Quick disclaimer, this is based on stuff that I do and what I like. If you like other stuff, just use that. It's not really that big of a deal. Have a good time. Fun is the most important part. As I said, this is not like, I'm not going to teach you how to be big on Twitch. I'm not going to teach you how to record stuff. I'm not going to tell you how to like do YouTube videos. I'm not going to tell you how to get big because I clearly do not know how to do that. So if you figure that one out, let me know. Also, I don't know how to make all the money. Okay, I could also be wrong. So check your local system, check your local performance. That is what is going to be real. With that out of the way, what is OBS? OBS is what everybody uses. Don't believe anyone else. Why should you use OBS? It's because it's what Twitch is working on, and it has a bunch of different plugins. But seriously though, this is the industry standard. I'm pretty sure every streamer that you know is using OBS. It's not always OBS's fault. Sometimes it's your fault. And the sooner that you realize that, the sooner that you can have a good relationship with OBS. I have divided this into 3 levels. So we're gonna go through level 1, and then level 2, then level 3. Each of them have increasing layers of complexity. Let's set up your OBS. First thing that you need to do is set up your canvas. So just because you have a whatever monitor doesn't mean your canvas is that size. I'm pretty sure by default, OBS will set it up to 1080p. I would recommend set it to be the size of the monitor that you plan on streaming. If you're like, okay, cool, I have a 1080p monitor, then set it to 1080p. 1440p monitors, set it to that. 4K monitors, set it to that. It's gonna make your life easier if this is just like 1-to-1. Also, setting your frame rate. I would recommend you set it to 60, especially if you are playing action-heavy games. If maybe you're just like selling shampoo or something, you can probably set it to 30. If you are going to downscale from, 4K to 1080p, do it here. There are some performance reasons that you might want to do that. I would generally recommend you start with these scenes. You do not need any more. Don't worry about it. Just chatting. So if you're just talking to your audience, then this is the scene that you want to use. If you were a cam streamer or a VTuber, you just want to have yourself take up most of the scene. For example, this is my just chatting scene. You can tell that I take up like 50% of the screen. This is when I'm just talking to the audience. It's great. Then I would recommend you have a gaming scene. For example, this is my gaming scene. The game goes where the presentation is. You just need something that has your game capture. After chat finishes coming on you, you might need to go to the shower, so you're probably going to want to have a BRB screen. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be crazy, but have something that you can go to so that if you need to go take a piss or whatever, that you can go do that in peace. Finally, you should have an ending soon screen. The reason why you want to have an ending soon screen is that you will probably forget to stop your stream at some point. And when you do that, you don't want any audio to be on. Next is capturing games. You are a gamer, you're going to be streaming games, probably. I would always recommend trying to capture your game in this order. Number 1 is game capture. Game capture is the most performant. Number 2 is window capture. Window capture is not as performant as game capture, but it won't show your whole screen. Finally, there is display capture, which can dox you if you aren't careful. Do not use display capture unless you know what you're doing or you're just using it for recording. Capturing cameras. If you want to use a camera, you should use a video capture device. You should also use the source if you are doing a capture card. Next is nested scenes. So this is kind of mind-bending, but you can add a scene as a source to another scene. This is called a nested scene. So you can see here in my example, I have my mic, I have my overlay, and then I have my camera. This also makes sure that you have only one copy of the source. For example, I would always have my mic, I have an audio overlay. So every scene has my audio overlay, so I guarantee my mic is on that scene, except for ending soon. The other concept that people get in trouble with is reference versus duplicate. If you are copying and pasting sources around, it will often ask you, do you want to paste a reference or do you want to paste a duplicate? If you paste a reference, it is the same source, just on a different scene. Duplicate makes a different copy. So for example, if I have a text and I copy it and I paste as a reference, if I change the text in one place, it will change that in both places. But if I paste it as a duplicate, if I change it in one place, then it wouldn't change it in the other place. This, I think, confuses a lot of people. Filters on references are the same. If you need different filters, either make a duplicate or use a source clone, which we will get to later. Audio. Turn all this off. And I would recommend capturing everything separately. This will really make it easy for you to like mute certain parts or do like multi-track recording. Let's go into OBS audio sources, what they are and what they're good for. So audio input capture, this is your microphone. Application audio capture, this is for getting audio from a non-game application like Discord. Audio output capture, don't use this. You don't need this. This is capturing like what comes out of your speakers. Also, games have their own sliders. You can also make browsers show up separately if you control audio via OBS in the properties. Connecting OBS to your streaming platform of choice. You just need to choose the service and click connect account. This will open up a browser and you'll go through the flow and then you'll be done. Now is time for the very, very nerdy video discussion. TLDR, if you are on Twitch, use enhanced broadcasting. Twitch is actively working on this feature and it will set all of this stuff for you. If you cannot use that, use a 6000 bit rate. X264 is on the CPU and whatever other one that you have is on the GPU. So let's talk about like why you need to encode your video. Right? Like why are we doing this whole encoding process? Well, it's OBS's job to turn your scene into video and then send it across the internet. To do this, it must encode the video signal. However, there are so many different ways that this can do it. There are different codecs and different options if you want to encode on the CPU versus the GPU. And so you're like, how do I know which one to choose? Twitch specifically has invested time and money into making enhanced broadcasting that'll figure out the settings are best for your computer, and if you can use it, I would highly recommend it. So what is bitrate? Because this is another thing that you hear a lot of people talk about. Bitrate is basically how much data one frame can take up. So if your video looks blocky, try to increase the bitrate. Bitrate is also affected by your internet. If you aren't using enhanced broadcasting, Twitch only supports 6000 bitrate. But if you are using enhanced broadcasting, it will do up to 7.5K for 1080p and 9K for 1440p. However, you cannot stream 1440p unless you are in the beta. YouTube lets you do whatever fucking bitrate you want, so it's kind of amazing for that. It also lets you do a couple more advanced codecs. Let's talk about the codecs. The codecs are basically video encoding algorithms, is the easiest way to think about it. They encode and decode, and you encode it on your stream, but also in the browser, it decodes it so people can watch your video. H.264 is the oldest codec and the least performant per bit rate. And we'll talk about that when we talk about the other codecs, like what the hell does that mean? However, this is the only one that Twitch supports without enhanced broadcasting. HVEC, also known as 8.265. This is a newer codec, and it's widely supported on most GPUs. Twitch has actually already added this. If you are watching this stream on Twitch in 1080p or 1440p, you are watching on HVEC. It's a lot more efficient than H.264, so you get more quality for the same bitrate. YouTube also supports this. I think also TikTok supports this. And then finally, there's AV1, which is the newest codec, which is specifically built for streaming. It's way, 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 way better than H.264, but the gap between this and HVEC isn't as much as you expect. YouTube is rolling out support for AV1, so if you are watching this on YouTube, we might be in AV1. Twitch eventually wants to get there, but isn't there yet. The bad news is that if you want to do AV1, you have to be on the NVIDIA 4000 series and higher, or an Intel card, or Neko says AMD 7000 series or higher. I go into OBS and I see stuff. What the hell does this mean? If you're on NVIDIA, these are the NVIDIA encoders. You have the AV1, H.264, and HVEC. For AMD, you have AV1, 264 AVC, and 264 HVEC. And then if you're on Intel, you have AV1, 264, and HVEC. So all of these are going to be on your GPU. If you are trying to encode on the CPU, you can use AOM AV1, SVT AV1, and X264. Generally, GPU encoding is just better because it has dedicated hardware. I would really, really, really not recommend encoding on the CPU if you can avoid it. The dedicated hardware is separate from the hardware that does the 3D rendering. It doesn't really matter what like games you're playing. It won't interfere with the encoding process. So that's an important thing to remember, is that like you're not really gaining anything by like putting stuff on the CPU instead of the GPU. All right, so what is transcoding? This is not, programming socks related. So you may notice that a lot of streams have multiple resolutions available. So if you look on my stream right now, you can see that we got 1440p, 1080p, 720p, 480p, and 360p. This is due to transcoding. Okay, so transcoding is taking a video signal and transforming it from one format to another format. In terms of streaming, it's always focused on resolution, but it could be, from one encoder to another encoder. Twitch does automatic transcoding for partners. For affiliates, you may or may not get it. It's kind of like first come, first serve. I think if you are not affiliate, you'd never get it. But what if you could do your own transcoding? So this is where Twitch Enhanced Broadcast comes in. What this does is basically does the transcoding on your side. So for example, my machine, all those resolutions that I talked about earlier, I'm actually encoding that and sending that to Twitch. But if you are multi-streaming and you're an idiot like me, then you might run into the NVEC limit warning. You can only have 8 encoder processes on consumer level cards. If Twitch has the way and dual format, so AKA going horizontal and vertical, is a success, it can and will eat up all 8 of your encoder processes. Let's talk about Streamer 102 before you go live. So generally, I don't like having 2 things that do the same thing. For example, for a while I had blurp and sound alerts. They do the same thing. I didn't really need to have 2 things to do sound effects, right? So I got rid of one of them. I actually got rid of both of them. What I'm suggesting here is going to be very minimal. Don't be offended if like your favorite bot or technology isn't here. It's either because I don't have experience with it or I already have something that does the same thing. Set up Seribot, for the love of God. Seribot will nuke scammers from orbit. It's so good. It will just do that, and that's all I care about. It does a lot of other things, but yeah, go to docs.seri.bot. It's good. Looking at chat, I used to play a lot of FPS games, and I learned that I could basically just like be good by looking at my minimap all the time. Chat is your minimap. You need to look at chat at least every 30 seconds. So you need to have something up that lets you do that. So here's a list of software that I've seen people do. You can use the chat dock in OBS. Do keep in mind that this is kind of expensive resource-wise, because chat is really expensive. You could also use a phone or a small monitor to keep an eye on it. That's kind of what I do. You can use Chatterino. Chatterino is sick if you're only on Twitch. You can also use StreamerBot's chat, which is what I do. And then there's a transparent Twitch overlay, which Neko turned me on to. Also, stream alerts overlays. You should have something. Please have something when like somebody follows or whatever. You get something and you're like, oh, hey, I know somebody followed. Thank you. Please, please, please set this up. I would generally recommend just using stream elements for chat and alerts. You can also do built-in Twitch alerts. And if you're an affiliate, the Twitch alerts will give you extra emote slots. But don't go overboard. Don't go crazy. Your overlay isn't your content. People are never going to interact and stay with you because of the fancy things that you got on stream. I know that's rich coming from me, but trust me, like, you have enough to worry about. Like, don't really, like, go crazy. There is nothing wrong with making your own overlays and your own alerts. You will learn stuff. It will be more unique to you. But please, for the love of God, don't have the running zombie. You can customize the sound. You can customize the GIF. You can customize so much. Streamer 103, performance and debugging. First, some general debugging advice. Take your time, go systematically, turn one thing off at a time in order to isolate the issue. I know it's boring. I know it takes a lot of time, but that will help point you to the solution. It works every single time. Also, try Googling for the answer. Try to be as specific as you can. If you go to somebody and they're like, it broke, it's going to be like, they're going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? If you're like, I'm getting error ABC123 when I try to move this thing to the left, then people are like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I know what's going on. I can maybe help this person. There's only so many types of problems that you can have. There's only so many places the issue can be. It's either your computer software, or your internet connection. Now, it could be like Twitch is down or something like that, but that's probably not the case. There are a couple of tools that I'm going to go over. Tool number 1 is bandwidth test mode. This is only for Twitch. YouTube, I think they're rolling out something like this, but for now, this is just for Twitch. Under your stream, when you're connected, you'll see this like checkbox that says enable bandwidth test mode. Basically, this allows you to go live, but you're not going live to your audience. You're only going live to Twitch's diagnostics, which we will get to in a little bit. Just make sure you turn this off when you're actually ready to go to stream. But if you're wondering, if you're like, hey, am I losing frames on encoding and rendering? I just wish I could go live. This lets you go live. OBS stats doc. This will tell you if you are losing frames. So this is in OBS, you go to, I think, docs and then stats. It is literally built in. Average time to render frame is 0.3 milliseconds. That is good. Frames missed due to rendering lag. This means it had an issue rendering the frames. This means you got too much stuff on your OBS. Skip frames due to encoding lag. This is what will tell you if, hey, my encoding settings are not good. You're trying to go at too high a bit rate or something like that. Drop frames network. This is for your internet connection. So these 3 numbers will tell you where the problem is. Also, sometimes when you start up OBS, it thinks you have a lot of frames missed due to rendering lag, like I do right here. You just click reset and it will reset all the stats. So usually what I would recommend doing if you're trying to like figure out what's going on, click reset, click on the broadcasting mode, and then click go live. And then you will know exactly what is going on with your stream without having to go live and have a bunch of scuff. As I said, rendering lag drops are due to issues rendering your sources. Have less sources. Double check filters. You might have some that are eating up a lot of resources, and I will get to how you can determine that in a little bit. Also, consider using videos instead of filters if it makes sense. I will get to that in a bit too. Encoding frames. This is your encoder is trying too much. Reduce your bit rate or change your encoder. Maybe try streaming at a lower resolution. Though that's pretty much the only options there. Your network frame drops. This is issues with your internet. Make sure you are connected to Ethernet. And you're using the Ethernet connection. Also do a speed test with your ISP. This is like your network issues. Rendering issues, this is what you need. This is a third-party plugin that you need to install. And basically, as you can see, it will show you your CPU percentage, but more importantly, your GPU average. So for example, my main scene is taking up a lot of resources here. This user-defined shader is using a crap ton of GPU. Maybe I should consider not using this. If you are having network issues, this is the Twitch inspector. So this is a website that you can go to when you do broadcast mode, and you can see what you're sending to the server. Next is the OBS log analyzer. Maybe throw your log into this, and it will find issues for you, and it'll be like, hey, you have this setting turned on, turn that off. So this isn't really a tool, but this is a pain point that people run into. Each browser source is like having your own Chrome window open. So there's a couple of things that you can do to reduce the number of Chrome tabs you have open inside of OBS. Number one, check shutdown source when not visible. So if you are away from that scene where you have that browser source, it closes the tab. The other things is use nested scenes for expensive browser sources. Chat is expensive, so make sure you only have one copy by having a nested scene for your chat. Another thing that you can do is you could actually combine widgets into one browser source. So you can use Stream Elements. They have an overlay, which helps a lot. And then I also made this thing called the browser source combiner. And basically you can put in arbitrary URLs and place them all over the place. And then you'll only have one browser source, but you'll have multiple widgets. Also, another pain point, we talked a little bit about this earlier, webcams and capture cards. These are also very expensive. So again, make sure you only have one copy of it. Also, if you don't need the full resolution, downscale to what you actually need. All right, Streamer 104, Collabs. Collabs are really cool. Please invite me. But they have their own set of problems that you will now have to solve because you're dealing with another person. You have to first show the other people. You have to next play games together and then share chat, question mark. Maybe. Discord Reactive, aka Fugitech, is the easiest way to show other people. You log into that website and other people will appear as you join the call. They recently did a major update to everything. Video Ninja. If you want to show somebody else's model and more just than a PNG tuber, Video Ninja is a very good option. You have your partner select add your camera to OBS, and after they set everything up, they have a URL that they can send to you. I would recommend having a green background or a color that is not on their model, so then you can use a chroma key to get rid of that. Twitch Stream Together is another option that you can actually use for video sharing. It's sort of like Video Ninja, but it has some other benefits. If you're both streaming, you can use shared chat. If your collab partner isn't streaming, their followers get notified that you are live, which is really nice. On your stream, it has like +1, and it shows everybody's name like built into the stream, which is also cool. Twitch used to have a shelf on the front page for like people using Stream Together. They are really trying to push this feature. So you might get some other weird algorithmic stuff to push your stuff to the top. You can also abuse this and not use the audio video component if you want to get the other benefits, which I do often. You need to go to your dashboard and select Stream Together. Then you invite the collab partner. They get a notification on Twitch asking if they want to accept, and then they accept it. And yeah, once you're streaming together, you can send video like this. And you can chroma key if you need, and then you'll get a browser source at the end of the day. Play together. So how do you actually play games with the other person? I'm assuming you are gaming with them. So I think you have a couple of options. First, you can play a computer game that has built-in multiplayer. You can use Fightcade or you can use Parsec. These are the main options. There's also other emulators like Dolphin that have built-in net play. but I will not be covering that here. Multiplayer computer games, you just do the multiplayer thing. Fightcade is an option that a lot of people overlook. It has a lot of fighting and arcade games, yes, but there's a handful of console games, and once you get the JSON set up, you can just go. Parsec is the final option, and Parsec is the one with the most options. So if you're playing an emulator that doesn't really have a way to do multiplayer, but it has local multiplayer, this is what you need. So you and your partner just need to have an account and be friends. Then you send them an invite link, and then they can see your computer. You should really only have them use a controller just so there's no like mishaps. But yeah, basically you just have the connection, and then it's like they have a controller hooked up to your PC, which is pretty cool. Advanced tools. So we are now on the second level of the presentation. So if you are a beginner and looking to get into a little bit more advanced stuff, this is for you. Studio mode. Studio mode lets you adjust another scene while still showing a different one. A lot of noobs just like use this all the time. Don't do that. Use this to tweak something when you're live. So basically what you'll do is you'll go into studio mode, you'll select one of the other ones, and then you make your changes, and then you exit studio mode. So this happens when you go from one scene to another, like this, for example. So if you see these cats, whoop, that is a transition. And if you want to be fancy and have this where both scenes are shown at the same time, Nutty has a better job of explaining it. It's called a track mat transition. OBS has 6 audio tracks. If you go into advanced audio properties, you can see what's on track. So for example, here I have Fightcade is only on track 1. Everything else is on every single track. You can eventually choose what tracks you want to show up in your recording. So if you want to do multi-track recording, like I'm doing right now, you can just like check which ones go to which track. So it's very helpful for that. OBS plugins, this is the main reason that people like OBS. They can add a lot of functionality. We've already talked about a couple of them, like Spout and the source profiler. But there's so much more that you can do. And also, if you are using OBS right now, you have the Websocket plugin installed. And that lets other people like other bits of software interact with OBS. So I'm going to be going over plugins that I would recommend, but there's no order. You don't have to use any of them at all. Installing plugins, there's basically 2 ways to do it. First is that the plugin dev gives you a regular Windows installer, and then you just use it. This is my preference. Exceldra has spoiled me. Otherwise, you got to go into your OBS directory and drop in the files. They will be at C, Program Files, OBS Studio. Make sure the plugin folder and the other folder like line up. And then you can verify that a plugin has been installed by looking at the log or just trying to use it. Stream Deck plugin, this gets installed when you want to have your Stream Deck interact with OBS. It goes through the store. The source switcher. So if you notice, guys, in the top, like above me, there's a little like social media rotator. That's what the source switcher does. Andy Lippy has a video about it, so you'll want to check that out. Move. This is one of the goats. This will let you do so much stuff. I mostly use it to be based on audio. And so like when Swobe talks on this scene, she'll pop up on the left, and that is the move stuff. Noise plugin. This is, so I'm going to have a bunch of just for fun plugins that you kind of don't need, but it's just for like cool stuff. So this generates like noise and stuff. It's really cool. 3D effect. This is really good if you're like, I'm going to stretch my games to fit this TV, or I need to put myself in this background. It's really cool. The next is the transition table. This is really nice because you can change which scenes have which transitions. Scale to sound, this one's more of a fun thing, but you can actually use this for like PNG tubers. If you want to add an extra like pop, so it like stretches a little bit, has a little squash and stretch. Vintage filter is pretty much just for black and white and sepia. I use it sparingly here and there. It's pretty good. Source clone. This is one that you need to have. So remember when I was talking about reference versus duplicate? Essentially, it lets you have a duplicate so that you can apply different filters to each one. A recursion effect, this is like fun, like September vibe. Retro effects, another fun one, has really nice dither and VHS, would recommend. Scene tree folder, I really like this one because I can have folders for your scenes. Composite blur, another one of the GOATs. I would highly recommend it. Advanced mask, another finite singularity banger. It's good for cutting shapes out of stuff and doing fades and stuff like that. A waveform, if you want to visualize music, it's kind of built into OBS, which is really sick. Google Caption plugin, this is another essential. If you are watching this and you're using the closed captions, it's because of this. Scene as transition. I haven't really used this one yet, but it lets you use another scene as a transition, which is really cool. Browser transition, same as the previous one, but instead of scene, you can use a browser, which is pretty cool. So if you wanted to have do like a tournament and have like a special custom transition that had data and stuff, like you could do this, which would be pretty sick. Time warp scan, this is a fun one. I think you can see from this image what it does. Stroke, shadow, glow. You can add a stroke, shadow, or glow to stuff. It is also really cool. But also be careful. It can eat a lot of resources. Quick access utility lets you search OBS. It is so helpful. I could never fucking find stuff. Now I just do control space and it opens up and then I can click all of the stuff here. Shader filter, this is like probably my favorite fun one, but it eats up a lot of resources. So it can do like really crazy stuff. Basically, it lets you add shader to any single source. Again, be very careful. Freeze filter, so it will freeze a source. So this is really good. If you've ever seen like the BRB thing on my stream, this is what I do to just like freeze stuff, right? Spout plugin. If you are a VTuber, you absolutely need this. How Spout works, I believe it shares data between processes, like GPU visual frames between processes. So if you are a VTuber, you can use Spout and it will save you resources and it will send your VTuber over to OBS. But you can also do insane stuff with it. So yeah, this reflection that you're seeing right now, I'm sending VNyan into OBS and then I'm having OBS look at the gaming PC plus the reflection, and then I'm sending it back to VNyan. And so that's what you're seeing, which is also sent back to OBS. It's this crazy Ouroboros of Spout. Gradient source, this is pretty straightforward. It's a gradient. You've heard me say like, just make a video, just make an image. Like, what the hell am I talking about? It's really tempting to slap a bunch of cool filters on, but these are really bad for performance since it's code running on every single frame of every single source that you're doing. So if the effect that you're doing is static, it's almost always better to like record a scene for a specific bit and then use a video source on loop to replicate the effect. Or just like, as I was saying with like the stroke, if you're just an image, if you're just a PNG, just add your stroke to your PNG. Don't do it as a shader. It's a bad idea. Streamer 203 automation crash course. So there's no right way to automate. Just do whatever the hell you like, okay? So like don't at me. If you like mix it up, like go use mix it up. Like that, like whatever works for you, just go do it, okay? But my preference is I want to do stuff inside of OBS. I don't like bots that can't do stuff like change scenes. If I can't do a command to change scene in your tool, I'm probably not going to want to use it. There's nothing wrong with running multiple if it's easier to do certain things in certain areas. Let's talk about the Stream Deck, because you might not think of Stream Deck as an automation tool, but you can actually use multi-actions as like macros. I know it's a crazy concept. Use the macro pad as a macro pad, but you know, this is okay to be a gateway into other automation. So we're going to talk about StreamerBot. This is probably the bot that everybody uses the most. They're working on the UI. They've released StreamerBot 1.0. This is StreamerBot. StreamerBot is not necessarily my favorite because I feel like it can sometimes be hard to understand. To StreamerBot's credit, it does get a lot more active development. And it has a chat widget that supports Twitch and YouTube. So first thing you'll do is you'll go into platforms, you'll select Twitch, You'll connect your account and stuff like that. They have so much stuff that you can do, like, oh, let me do polls, right? Like, let me manage polls. It does a lot of like creating, but the basics of basics is like actions, and like it's just actions, right? If I want to do an action, I can just do add. So then like now they added this like a while back to have triggers. So here I can just add one. So I can do add like core, like command triggered, and then I can create a command, right? And so basically your actions have triggers, and then they also have like sub actions. So if I do command, right, any, right, well, like whatever. And then down here I have sub actions, and so I can do like Twitch, chat, send message to channel. Hi, I'm a message. Then I do test. And you can see in chat it says, hi, I'm a message. So that's the basic thing that you do for StreamerBot. Sammy is the alternative. Sammy is my favorite automation tool. I think it's really easy to understand, and I think it's really easy to learn because it is very close to a Stream Deck. And so if I wanted to make the exact same thing that I did the last time, I'm going to edit my appearance. So I'm just going to call it test. This is just so I don't lose it. And then I will edit it has these things called triggers. So for example, if I want my Twitch, I'm not connected to OBS, so that's why it's kind of like freaking out. But if I just search for chat, right? Twitch chat message, test, save, and then I go in here, and then I have my list of commands, and I go to chat, send chat message. Hi, this is a message. Save, okay, save, that's it. Okay, let's talk about multi-streaming. Multi-streaming is when you stream to multiple platforms at the same time. So usually you try to do this to grow an audience on multiple sites at the same time. Quick disclaimer, for me, in my opinion, to do this well, it actually takes a lot of work. You need to have everything set up on all sites so people don't feel like second-class citizens. But there's gonna be stuff that like channel points that like only Twitch does and YouTube doesn't, and that's just gonna be how it's gonna be. But there are some stuff that you can do. For example, all my commands that are for everyone also work on YouTube. There's really only two types of multi-streaming. So one, you can use a relay service, or you can do your own multi-streaming on your computer. You can also do a combination of both, but there's no right way. Just do what makes sense for you. The relay multi-stream service, basically, you're gonna be using Restream.io. You stream to Restream, and then Restream streams to the other places. This takes the least amount of resources because you're just streaming to one place. Disadvantage is it usually costs money, or they add like watermarks or some other stuff. Multi-RMTP multi-streaming. So this is when you multi-stream on your own box. Basically, you are sending encodes to multiple places. This is what I do. So you use a couple of plugins, notably Atom Multistream, and if you're trying to go vertical like I am, you use the Atom Vertical plugin, and you stream that from your computer to those places. You can reuse encoders, but it kind of requires more internet because you're actually sending more stuff. But you can also use separate encoders, which is what I do. So if YouTube goes down, Twitch is unaffected. Or if Twitch goes down for some dumb reason, YouTube's not affected, which is great. But the biggest advantage in this is you have full control over how stuff gets sent over. For example, I am streaming on YouTube in AV1. I can't do that on Twitch, and I have better video quality on YouTube. But the biggest disadvantage is that you will go crazy because it takes up so many resources. Multi-stream chat, this is the biggest pain point that you will have, is keeping up with chat across all your platforms. If you're using Restream or another relay service, they have a combined chat for you so you can look at it. If you're not, I like the StreamerBot chat as it combines all the stuff for you. If you want to get a chat widget that does combine it, there are not a lot of great options. Pretty much you're gonna be using nutties. Or you build your own like a crazy person. But what about your mods? Your mods now have a lot more work because they have to keep track of all the chat. and I couldn't find a good tool, so I made one. It is called Chatterator. It will show all the chats side by side by side. All right, Streamer 205, multi-track audio recording. You can record multiple audio tracks, and the thing is, it's actually really, really cool if you are like streaming DMC music and you don't want that saved to the VOD, or you're doing a podcast and you want to have everybody separated, or if you're recording a YouTube video while live, like I am, and I just want to have my vocals, the background music, which I'm going to cut pretty much entirely, and all the desktop stuff too. So set up audio sources. We kind of already talked about this. It's these little check marks. You check them on and off depending on what you want. Setting up the recording. So this is where you select which audio tracks you want to record. And so here I only have audio track 1, but if I selected like 2 and 3 and 4, then I would have those, and then I'd have that many. Transparent video recording. This has kind of changed a little bit. There's this video by Pandoramonium that shows you how to do it, and you can record transparent video. Finally, we are entering Insano mode. This is stuff for crazy people. I'm relying on web dev stuff. You can learn. I'm not trying to dissuade anybody from learning, but if you don't want to learn web dev, it's not off the shelf. Everything is a browser source. I don't know if you understand how powerful this is. Everything is a browser source. What the hell do I mean? Is that a lot of stream widgets are just browser sources. OBS lets you enter custom CSS so you can control the browser source. Easiest way to find a selector for something you're looking for is open up the URL of the widget inside of Chrome. Do it in Chrome because Chrome has the best debug tools. I'm sorry, that's just true. Find the element you're looking for using inspect element, and from there you can make the selector you need to modify. If you want to learn a lot about CSS, go to W3 Schools. It's a great resource. So now we're going to do a CSS selector crash course. All HTML elements have a tag and usually have a class or an ID. An element might also have other attributes that you can select off of. And so here's my examples. So this is div. You'll see this a lot. This is just a div. This doesn't have an ID or a class. Span class equals class 1. This has a span that has a class of class 1. Div ID is special. This has a div that has an ID of special, right? This is div class 1, class 2. This has 2 classes, class 1 and class 2. And then we have div data speaking equals true. So it has a data speaking attribute that we can select off of, which is very devious if you know what's coming next. So now we're going to talk about the selectors now that we know about the elements. So if you use div, this selects every div on the page. Probably don't want to do this. Dot class 1 targets every element with the class 1. Class 1, class 2, no space in between. This is very important. These mean different things. This targets every element that has both class 1 and class 2. If you have a space in between, it's class 2 elements that are inside of class 1. Hashtag ID targets an element that have an ID of ID. And then this one, square brackets, data speaking equals true, is this will target elements who have the property data speaking with the value of true. So the very powerful one right there. Now, 301, with that out of the way, customizing fugitech. I don't think this is relevant anymore because fugitech changed their HTML, so this might not be correct. But since fugitech is a browser source, you can make it look however you want. So for example, Flex H screen, this is like the main layout, or at least used to be. Div data Discord ID, this is for a specific person. For example, this is for Swolbay. And then div data speaking true, this is for people who are talking. This is for like any of the elements that are like talking. Customizing widgets. This is going to depend on the widget. If you only have a link, then you can only do CSS. But if you are in Stream Elements, you have a lot more options because you can go into the editor and you can see the full HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Chat is the most complicated widget out there since it gets used the most. What you want to do is going to be like, hey, do I want to do a reskin, or am I trying to add new functionality? If you're just reskinning, you might just be able to change the CSS. But if you want to add, remove new functionality, you're going to have to modify the JavaScript. So if you want to make your own chat, stream element style, I've actually made a template that you can use completely for free as a starting place, and then you can customize it to your heart's content. It does rely on stream elements. So if you want to use your own chat using StreamerBot, I found this other repo, and I use this as a starting point for the chat that you guys are using right now. OBS WebSocket widgets. You can make your own reusable widgets without having to do something like stream elements. But you will need to have the HTML file, have your WebSocket password. I pass this in with a query parameter so it isn't hard-coded, but you could also just hard-code it. I made this example. So this was so I could connect to Sammy. I'm using this OBS WebSocket library. And then you get the WebSocket password and port. And then if OBS sends a custom event, then you can do stuff with it. When we did the Maid Cafe poll was built using this. Basically, I had Sammy send something to OBS using the WebSocket, and then this browser source read from it. Okay, so example on the other side is, how does this look in Sammy? So this is like broadcast custom event, and here's my custom event, and then I can pass in arbitrary data. I can have as many properties as I want that I can read back on the other side. Dual GPU and multi-GPU streaming. I am learning so much about this. There is going to be a video coming soon containing all of my findings. If you are a consumer-grade hardware, i.e. not high-end desktop or server. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you are on consumer-grade hardware. So if you are on consumer-grade hardware, you are limited to 24 PCIe lanes that are shared between your PCIe slots and M2 drives. Most modern graphics cards use 16 PCIe slots. Needless to say that if you throw in a second GPU on that grade of hardware, you will actually reduce your performance on your main card. This may change in the future, but it probably won't for a good while. Again, high-end desktop hardware is different. Threadripper supports 48 PCIe lanes, and Threadripper Pro supports 96. Why would you want to do this? And this kind of alludes back to what I was talking through before. Consumer-grade graphics cards, for anything that's not a Pro or a Quattro, has 8 encoding processes, and Twitch Enhanced Broadcasting is a greedy kitty who wants to use as many as possible, especially if you're in the vertical alpha. I'm using 5 right now, but the vertical alpha used all 8. The encoder is a separate part of the GPU and does not affect gaming performance. However, due to this limit, you might actually want to have a separate GPU for additional encoding. As soon as you're trying to move 3D processing from one GPU to another, you're gonna have a bad time. It severely limits the type of captures you can do and is probably not worth it. What you can do is change the encoder inside of OBS to point to a different graphics card. For some reason, mine was inverted and it said like GPU 0. The numbers are weird. You have to test to make sure it goes to the right one. But basically, in your encoder settings, it will ask, which GPU do you want to go on to? And then it's like, oh, this is the one. And that is my last topic.